This part of the video is going to be all spoilers, so if you've not read the book, do not keep watching because I'm going to spoil you, like right now. You're not here if you haven't read the book. Okay. The video is going to be so long. This prologue was so cool how it was from Elena's point of view. I don't know how you guys say her name, but I say Elena. Elena's point of view, and it's from the last war. Just reading this prologue part made me so excited to read the book. Yes, we're finally getting somewhere. We're finally getting some questions answered. One of the things I loved about this book from the very beginning was that we've got our squad and they're all settled. They know how to work together. Like Rowan and Aelin are a solid couple. Lysandra's off being in animal form all the time, and Aedion and Aelin are talking about having matching hairstyles and wearing matching clothes. Them all being together for this whole book, well, a lot of the book, just made me really happy. Aelin, Rowan, Aedion, Lysandra, Evangeline are all in Terrasen, and I thought this whole book was going to take place in Terrasen, which I was super excited to see because we've never actually seen Terrasen. But no, they were there for like a day, and they met this really annoying Lord Darrow, and Darrow just meets Aelin, and before he had even met her, he'd already decided that he didn't want her to be queen, and he got all these lords to sign something saying that they didn't want her to be queen, and it was just so frustrating because I was so ready for Aelin to be queen and get her court to Terrasen and start doing stuff, but that's not what happened at all in this book. To be honest, I don't care because I loved it so much. They were traveling around this whole book. In the scene with Darrow in the beginning, I thought that Aelin did a really good job keeping her temper in check. Like, she was struggling. She was struggling the whole time to keep that temper in check, to not just like burn him to ashes. But she did it, and I was so proud of her. I feel like that showed a good amount of character development, because the only time that she did lose it a little bit was when Darrow was talking about Aedion, so she just slams that knife in between Darrow's fingers. She just sat there and took all his insults. I understand that Darrow was trying to protect his kingdom. I really get it. It's just he didn't give her a chance to explain where she's been all this time or tell her story. He wasn't open to getting to know her and seeing what kind of queen she would be. He just had already decided that he didn't want her as queen. I really liked seeing Aelin and Ren come face to face. I like how Aelin told Ren that no matter what he decides, he has a place in her court for Nehemia and for everything that he did for Kael and the rebels. The witches are going to attack Rifthold, and Rowan has to leave the squad and go by himself and rescue Dorian. Now this made me super nervous, but it was all okay, and we actually had some super fun times with Rowan and Dorian in a boat on the sea. Rowan and Aelin's goodbye just kind of hurt my heart. He keeps calling her Fireheart. Fireheart has just become his name for her. He calls her that all the time, even in public conversations when she's not even there. He just references her as my Fireheart, and sentence when they were saying goodbye, it said that a word flickered into Aelin's head and she immediately ignored it for Rowan's sake, and from that sentence on, I was 99% sure that they were mates, and to be honest, I was almost sure just after rereading Airfire and Queen of Shadows recently that they were mates. This whole book, Sarah J Maas was holding out. She didn't use the word mate, and I was like, what's she waiting for? What's she waiting for? She's waiting for some terrible scene that's gonna rip my heart out, and that's when she'll actually use the word mate, but I'm going to talk about that later, okay? I'm really gonna try and make it through the beginning, middle part of this book before talking about the ending, because all I want to talk about is the ending, but I really also want to talk about the rest of the book. It's just really hard to not just skip right to the ending. So the Duke is Erewhon, but Erewhon is now in a pretty man's body, and I just want to know what happened to Duke Parrington's body. I know that that is not important, but I would just like to know, is he dead now? I should have been really worried when Manon and the 13 and all those yellow legs had to go take down Rifthold, but I was so excited for Dorian and Manon to be reunited that I kind of wasn't too nervous. When she shows up and she saves Dorian's life, I was like, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. Those scenes where he was fighting with his magic to defend Rifthold, whenever he fought with his magic, was super cool. Dorian's power has just gotten awesome. Whenever Dorian and Manon do their little hello princeling, hello witchling thing, I just cackle. Manon keeps thinking all these things, like when she saved Dorian, Dorian stood up and she was like, wow, I forgot how tall he is. He's super tall. Oh, Manon, dear, you've got a crush. Rowan and Dorian hanging out in a boat in the middle of the ocean is just my favorite. Rowan makes this little remark about how the idiots in this castle gave Selena, the most dangerous assassin in the kingdom, a chamber that was connected to their queen's chambers. So Dorian thought that Rowan and Aelin were mates this whole time. He just thought that they weren't telling anybody. So when Rowan says that he already had a mate, Dorian was like, oh, maybe they're not mates. There's just this conversation that they have on the way to Skull's Bay to see the pirate lord guy. And Rowan says that Aelin is his heart and their magic just understood each other deep down the way their souls did. Dorian asks Rowan if he just knew when he saw Aelin, and Rowan's like, no, we wanted to kill each other for a good long while. And he tells Dorian that Dorian will find his way out of the darkness too, and I just thought it was super sweet, their whole little adventure together. Dorian's character development has been super interesting. When you look back at the first book, he is not the same guy that he was back then. And before he got possessed or lost Sorsha, he did a lot of maturing, but now he's kind of got this darkness to him, but it's not just that, he's also a lot more sober-minded and more driven and more serious. Like, he takes running his kingdom very seriously, he takes this war very seriously. With our other friends, Aelin and Aedion and Lysandra have gotten to this town, and it's another one of those situations where we know that Aelin has a plan, but we're not sure what it is yet. So she frees this temple from all of the Valg soldiers who are there, and then she has a little conversation with Brannon, which was really interesting because Brannon and Aelin totally have the same humor and they're really similar. Obviously we know Aelin inherited his powers, but she also is just kind of like a reincarnation of him, which was hilarious. I love how Aedion was listening that whole time, and when Brannon went to leave, he winked at Aedion. When the overseer of Endovier showed up, I got so upset I had to put my book down and get up and go make a cup of tea and calm down because I was like, no, 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 no. That scene wasn't as bad as I was expecting it to be, but it was really weird. So the dude's chest cracks open and there's a face inside. Manon goes back to Morath and she has to do this trial thing because she saved Dorian's life and she killed some witches. First of all, Petra Blueblood from Air of Fire, who we haven't seen since then. It was super cool that she popped up again and she like spoke up for Manon. Evil Granny is like, yes, our witch leader cannot die, so we're gonna kill one of the 13. Oh, I don't know, who should it be? Asterin. The matron just needs to die. I was hoping she was gonna die in this fight scene. Anne pulls out her sword and she's about to execute Asterin, and then she just says to her 13, run, and then she turns her sword and she attacks Evil Granny. I was so hoping that the matron was gonna die, but that didn't happen, and actually Manon almost died. We found out some super interesting stuff. So Manon is the daughter of a Blackbeak and a rare Croatian prince, which is super interesting because up until this point we've never heard about male witches. Manon is half Croatian, and that Croatian from Air of Fire who she killed, who I knew would become important again because they keep mentioning her throughout the books, was Manon's half-sister, and now, after killing her half-sister, basically she's a Croatian queen. So Manon is injured and she jumps off a balcony onto Abraxos's back. And then there's this super cool fight scene in the air. All of the fight scenes in this book were so good. Like, this scene should have been really confusing. I was tracking the whole time, and Manon's like running the other witches into walls. So epic. I think maybe my all-time favorite character in this book is Elide. I loved Elide in Queen of Shadows, but in this book, Elide is just on another level. She is so cool. She's on the run all by herself. She walks into any situation and she's just able to blend in. She knows what to say. She knows who to pretend to be to win people over. She's super brave. I just love her. I love her. I had this prediction at the end of Queen of Shadows that Lorcan, who has been hunting down these word keys, would hunt down the one that Elide has. I did call it. I did not expect was how this all went down. First of all, I was not expecting to grow to really like Lorcan. I hated Lorcan in Queen of Shadows. I thought he was really annoying and he was just kind of there the whole time, and he didn't have any personality other than he didn't have any feelings. But in this book, I really liked Lorcan. There was something hilarious about him. He would try and do stuff for a lead, offer to kill her uncle. Just the way that he tried to be nice made me laugh. I loved the whole time that they were traveling together. The lead not being scared of him at all, and him being like, why are you not scared of me? What's going on? A lead gives Lorcan her mom's name. He promises to protect her if she'll give him information about Morath. Meanwhile, he thinks that he actually has one of the word keys because in Queen of Shadows, Aelin tricked him. So the whole book, I was waiting for that bomb to drop. He tells Lorcan that they're going to pretend to be husband and wife, and Lorcan is so grumpy the whole time. He's just like, no, we're brother and sister. And she's like, no, we're going to pretend to be husband and wife. That's how it's going to be. Lorcan was like, his wife, gods above. He was over 500 years old. And this girl, young woman, she-devil, whatever she was, he totally admires her and how she's not afraid of him at all. But on the other hand, he's determined to not like her. Dorian and Rowan get to Skull's Bay and they meet Rolf. And if you don't know Rolf, then you didn't read the novellas. And if you didn't read the novellas, you really need to, because a lot of the characters in the novellas came back in this book. Ansel, Ilias, and Rolf all have novellas, what happened with Selena and them, and I feel like if you didn't read those novellas, you kind of missed out. But after Crown of Midnight, if you read the novellas, you get a lot more out of Heir of Fire and Queen of Shadows, because there's a lot of stuff that they kind of mention very in passing that you have a whole story about in the novellas. So Rolf's tattoos, basically magical treasure maps, which is why he's a pirate. Now that magic is free, his maps work. When the two Fae males show up, the two guys from the cadre, I was like, Rowan just throws a dagger at one of their heads in greeting, and I feel like Rowan and Aelin are starting to pick up on each other's habits. You know, when people have been in a relationship for a while and they start to kind of copy each other. This part made me think that Rowan and Aelin are starting to resemble each other, because Aelin would totally throw a dagger at somebody's head in greeting. After seeing Lorcan in Queen of Shadows, I was not expecting to just fall in love with them all so much. Gavriel is so adorable with Adian. He just loves Adian so much, and he just wants to get to know his son. Gavriel is so pulled apart when he finds out that he has a son. Like, he was so devastated, and he just wanted to meet Adian right away. Like, he was willing to do anything. And Fenris is so in love with Aelin. He just wants her to be his queen. And he, like, follows her around like a puppy. All the stuff that Fenris did for his twin. I just loved seeing Rowan and some of the cadre interact with each other. They still kind of naturally follow Rowan's lead. They just tease each other. Fenris said something about how he's never understood how Rowan could walk with that many weapons on him. Fenris and Gavriel are trying to track down Lorcan because Maeve has ordered them to kill Lorcan for abandoning her, even though Lorcan was doing it out of love, because Maeve is evil. I like how Gavriel's kind of the one who pulls them all together. He's always kind of been the buffer between Rowan and Lorcan, and Rowan and Fenris and Lorcan, and he's the calm, serious, wise one. One of my favorite scenes is the scene where Aelin just shows up in Rolf's office and surprises them all. She's just got her feet propped up on his desk. She's pretending to be Selena. She's shamelessly flirting with Rowan, and everybody is trying not to laugh, and meanwhile Rolf is so pissed off. She says to Rowan, she's like, you I don't know, but I would very much like to, and he's like, unfortunately I'm taken. And she keeps going on and on and on about how whoever she is, she must be incredibly beautiful and very talented and totally amazing to make you so loyal to him. And Rowan's just like, yeah, she is. At that point, it was Dorian's POV, and there was this line where he was like, Aelin is looking at this bowl full of emeralds, and Dorian's like, don't take the emeralds, don't take the emeralds. She does. Talking, she somehow like slips an emerald up her sleeve and one under her tongue, and then Rolf is like, put those back. She puts the one up her sleeve back in the bowl, and then she spits the other one from in her mouth into the bowl, and Rowan is like so proud of her. He's like, that's my woman. I love when Rowan says hi to her. He just like rambles off all the reports, and then he's like, oh, and I really, really missed you. Talk about how the cadre sometimes call each other boyo. That, it's this tiny little thing, but it made me freak out. Rowan calls Fenris Boyo, and at one point somebody calls Adian Boyo, and I don't know why, but I love it, and I hope that they use it all the time in the next book. There's this new thing called the settling that we have never heard about before, and apparently when a fae gets to adulthood, there's a point at which they have to kind of transfer over to immortal life, which makes sense because it's not like fae are children for a super long time and then they're adults for a super long time. Some demi-fae can also go through this settling. They've mentioned a couple times that Adian might be immortal. Rowan makes all these speeches in this book, and his speeches are just my favorite. I just cannot. He makes this one speech to Aelin about how he would have fought forever even if the blood oath hadn't been broken to get back to her, and he knew the moment that she walked out of the darkness of the vow and smiled at him through her flames. Rowan's speeches just make my heart soar. I just loved Rowan through this whole book. I also love Adian and Lysandra. They just understand each other. They've been through similar things. Adian knows how far he can push Lysandra and when to stop. Their flirting is adorable. Lysandra goes with Adian to meet his father. She just goes with him because he asked her to and supports him. And let's talk about that scene where Adian met his dad. I thought that was a really good scene. Part of me just wanted them to like run into each other's arms and start laughing and crying. But the way that it happened was so much more realistic. Gabriel loves Adian, and he loved his mother, and he is devastated that he had a son this whole time and he didn't know, and he's devastated that Adian's mom died to keep him from Maeve. But Adian has a lot of complicated emotions about his father. Obviously, he lets his father know that. I love how he just kind of blows up, and then he walks out, and he's like, I did not plan to say any of that. And Lysandra assures him that it's good that he spoke from his heart. Meanwhile, Aelin releases like this wave of power out, and it summons all of the Vaug. So Aelin's like, yeah, we could defend your city for you, or we'll just leave, you know. But if we defend your city, you gotta help us. Oh, in that conversation before battle, Rolf mentions Sam, and he says something about Sam. Rowan just grabs him by the throat and slams him to the table. When Rolf says something about Sam, he's like, no way. The battle. This battle was crazy. I loved it. The battles in this book were on a completely other level. First of all, they weren't confusing at all, which is something that has improved from the first book. They were super epic and really complicated. Aelin has found this new depth to her power, which is unending. It's just crazy. In this scene, she's possessed by Deanna. I was so not expecting this, and it was I hate the gods in these books. They're so annoying and so just ugh. So, Aelin almost destroys Skull's Bay, and Rowan jumps in front of her, and we get the whole mates can't hurt each other scene that I've been waiting for since Air or Fire, because they mentioned in Air or Fire that mates cannot hurt each other. And I've heard a lot of theories about when this would come into play. And here it is, we got this scene. And of course, I knew that that's what was happening because I was so sure that they were mates. They don't actually talk about it until later. You know how her fire turns into moonfire? Is this something that Aelin can do on her own, or is that just a Deanna thing? Because that was pretty cool. Lysandra is the coolest. First of all, she likes being an animal more than she likes being a person. Like, for the beginning of this book, she's hardly ever a person. And in this one, she becomes a sea dragon, just oh so casually. And she kills all these sea wyverns. It's so scary. I thought for sure she was gonna die, and I was not ready for that. I loved how they were all working together. Dorian kills a sea wyvern for Lysandra. Adian kills the last sea wyvern in one shot. Fenris saves Aelin from the water. This battle was awesome. Of course, Lysandra gets injured, and Adian's like, I'm pretty sure everybody's in love with you after that awesome battle that you just did, but too bad because I'm gonna marry you. So that's it. I loved the one little chapter. It was from Gabriel's point of view, but it just said the lion, and he was observing Adian, and he was saying how they already tell stories about Adian the wolf of the north, and they will continue to because obviously this guy's super talented. The lion wondered if anyone would know who sired him or if anyone would care. That chapter really got me. I'm not going to talk about the ending yet. I'm going to wait till the end to talk about the ending. But obviously, this book had some super sad parts. But there were so many times that I was crying from happiness. When Aelin tells Rowan that she loves him, she has never told anybody that she loved him. And she was in love with Sam. She was in love with Kale. But she never told them that she loved them. So the fact that Rowan is the first person who she has ever told that she loved him, she was like, I love you. I am in love with you. Then Rowan says, even when this world is a forgotten whisper of dust yes, between the stars, I will still love you. I love every time that Rowan calls her Fireheart and she calls him Buzzard. It's like their new thing. After they sleep together for the first time, they walk in and everybody's like staring at them, and Adian's like, do not move. And he looks at Dorian like, do not move. And this is a mate thing, okay? We've seen this in Sarah J Maas's other series. After mates sleep together for the first time, the male gets like super protective, and it's kind of like part of their animal fayness. They kind of lose it. Even super sensible males have to be careful, or they'll like destroy a whole house by accident because somebody looked at their female wrong. No one's saying anything about how they're mates. No one is saying that they're mates, but they are. They obviously are. We find out that Mala, the goddess who has been watching out for Aelin throughout all the books, is Elena's mother. So Brandon and Mala had Elena together. Oh my gosh. Pretty soon after the whole battle, they leave Skull's Bay, the whole crew. They're just like sailing through the sea, and here comes a wyvern, and Manon falls off Abraxos into the ocean next to their boat. Like, Manon's almost dead, and Abraxos just flew to find them. First of all, I want to know, was Abraxos going to find Dorian? Was he going to find Dorian? At this point, I just started flipping out because I was like, it's begun. Manon's gonna join the squad. She can't go back to her grandmother. She can't go back to the witches, so she's gonna join the squad. Abraxos in this book was just the cutest ever. Lorcan is obviously starting to care about Elide. He's so horrified by all the terrible things that have happened to her, which, knowing Lorcan, is surprising, but he shows it in the most hilarious of ways. He offers to get her a bath and like get her clothes cleaned and stuff, you know, because he needs her for information about Morath, and if she starts being an emotional wreck, he won't get his information, but not because he cares about her or anything. No, not that. That scene where Lorcan was throwing swords. They're hiding with this troop, so Elide is pretending to be a fortune teller and Lorcan a sword thrower. Lorcan's like shirtless and all oiled, and he's just throwing swords all over the place, and Elide says that he looks like super bored, that he might be contemplating murdering all of the people who were drooling over him. And then Lorcan tells her later that he like sold his shirt to some farmer's wife, and he's so proud of it. It's just so funny. So after that scene, the Ilkin attack, and Lorcan finds out from them that she's been lying to him about all this stuff, that her name's not Marion, it's Elide. They finally tell each other a little bit about themselves, some true things about themselves. Elide telling Lorcan what's up, like she is so not scared of him, and he is so surprised by it, and I love that part of their relationship. Elide is just so wise. She just understands people. She says how it doesn't sound like love that he has for Maeve, and how love makes you your best person, and how Lorcan doesn't even know what happiness is. Lorcan's like, I don't mind being around you. He's trying to express that he likes her. Manon is now on the ship with the squadre. They heal her wounds and she's recovering, but she's like locked up in her cabin. Dorian and her have some great conversations. There's this one part where Dorian asks if she's hungry, and she just like glances at his throat, and he's like, seriously, you eat people? And she's like, well, sometimes, just for sport. Later when she says she's hungry, Dorian like smiles and she's like, for food. I'm hungry for food. All of their interactions are hilarious and wonderful, and Dorian is so unafraid of her, and she's so outraged, but she also loves it. I feel like sometimes Sarah J Maas makes fun of herself in her books. There's this one part where Dorian says how there's an unnatural number of attractive people on this boat. Sarah J Maas was poking fun at herself at how all her characters are like ridiculously gorgeous. I loved in this book that they explored how Aelin has trouble handling her power. They talk about this in Sarah J Maas's other series, and I was wondering if it would come into play with this one. How if you don't release some of your magic, you can go insane, and you have to learn how to handle your magic when you're this powerful. Aelin does struggle with that. There's this scene where she's sleeping, I think, and she loses control of her magic, and Rowan wakes her up and brings her back. I really loved that scene. Her tether to kind of pull her magic back in under her control was, my name is Aelin and I am not afraid. Like, Sarah J Maas just keeps bringing that back in the most emotional of ways. Rowan makes another adorable speech, and Aelin actually says, "Ah, you, when did you learn to make such pretty speeches?" After Aelin loses control, Dorian feels the magic, and he goes in to see if it was Manon. He was like flirting with her. He even interrupts her. He cuts her off mid-sentence with a kiss. Then he like pulls back, just walks out, and Manon is fuming. There's just some moments when the squadre was walking through the marshes that were really great. Like Lysandra turns into Fenris, and the part where Rowan lets that monster thing attack Manon, Aedion saying that Dorian still eats like a fine lady. Oh. There's this army of a ton of Ilkin coming right for them, and Aelin's like, I'm gonna walk out and burn them all. Rowan freaking Whitethorn walking through the fire to get to Aelin. Here is the scene that I was waiting for since Queen of Shadows, when Elide and Aelin finally meet each other again. And Elide's thoughts before she meets her, she's like, what am I gonna say? Hello? How do you do? Please don't burn me. I'm sorry I'm so filthy and lamed. Aelin and Elide's reunion was everything that I wanted it to be. I wanted to see it when Aelin told Elide the story of her mom, and we got to see that. And then Manon walks up. Elide breaks into tears when she sees Manon, and Manon just mouths hope to her, and at this point I was bawling. Then Manon and Aelin laying claim to Elide, and they're like getting ready to fight over it, and Rowan's like, ladies, please, and they turn to him with horrifyingly innocent smiles. Manon turns to look at Lorcan. Your claim on her is at the bottom of my list. Don't touch her. Aelin's like watching Lorcan and Elide, and she's like, yeah, we call it territorial fae nonsense. This whole ending part, I was a mess for. So Maeve shows up, and this is where I begin to lose it. They're crazily outnumbered. There's kind of no way they're gonna win. So Rowan goes to all his cousins. He tells them about Aelin. He tells them how he loves her and the hope that she is for the world. And they all join him against Maeve. Basically, Rowan's love for Aelin saved all their lives. He says Rowan had not possessed an army of his own to give to Aelin, so he won one through the only things Aelin had claimed were all she wanted: his heart, his loyalty, his friendship. Rowan's love for her is such a beautiful part of this book. And everybody has a chance against Maeve because all of his cousins joined him. And then the 13 show up. From then on, the battle is pretty easy. They win. Aelin and Manon, meanwhile, go through the looking glass to all these memories that Elena and Brannon left for them in this war in the past. They had this lock that Mala had given up her life to make, and Elena steals it from her dad and wastes it, locking Erewhon away. Her dad had this plan to use the lock to send all the word keys, all the gods, and Erewhon back to their land and keep them there, and Elena wasted it. At this point, I had already figured out that what they were saying with the whole nameless is the price thing is that Aelin was gonna die, and I kind of had that theory that Aelin was gonna die, and I thought, this is as bad as it's gonna be, right? I was very wrong. I was very wrong, because nobody died in this book, but what happened was so much worse. Aelin asks her, why did you send me to Wendelin? Elena's like, I wanted you to meet him. Aelin just says Rowan, and at this point I started crying when we found out Aelin was gonna die, and I did not stop until long after I finished the book. Why did the mirror thing spit them out miles from the boat? All of a sudden, they're in front of Maeve, and Faye has a knife to Elide's throat. Aelin has no magic left. Up until this point, I just kind of found Maeve annoying. She was like this problem that I knew was gonna come into play and become a bigger problem. This book made me hate her. This scene, she did everything bad that she could do. She makes Lorcan hold a lead. She starts hurting Aelin with like her dark magic. Fenris and Gavriel are begging her to stop. Rereading this scene, I just decided that Maeve is like the typical mean girl. She's jealous of Aelin because all her pretty boys are going over to join Aelin's court, and so she's like, I'm gonna hurt you and I'm gonna hurt everybody. She frees Gavriel dishonorably. Gavriel, who was one of the only ones who actually wanted to serve her, but he doesn't free Fenris, baby Fenris, who were want to be freed. Maeve, a long time ago, saw the future. She saw that Aelin would be the one to bring her back the keys, and she saw Aelin's mate. Now, the whole book, I was thinking, there's gonna be a scene where they finally use the word mate, and it's gonna rip my heart out. That's what Sarah J Maas is holding out for. This was that scene, and it was so much worse than I thought it was. Lyria was not Rowan's mate. Lyria was not Rowan's mate. Maeve just like tugged on some psychic thread, made him think that she was his mate, Obviously, Rowan really did love Lyria. He fell in love with her, but she wasn't his mate. Maeve knew that, and she did it on purpose, and she hurt Rowan that way, and then she had Lyria killed. This is the whole reason she pushed Aelin's mom to bring Aelin to meet her, because she had Rowan as a bloodsworn warrior, and she thought Aelin and Rowan would take one look at each other and know they were mates. She would have Aelin under her control. I thought if anybody knows that they're mates, it would be Rowan, because Rowan's had a mate before, and he knows what it feels like. But in fact, Rowan has not had a mate before, and Aelin is the one who has known that her and Rowan were mates. Back when I read Queen of Shadows, there was that line where Aelin says, they tried to shoot my, and then it's like, ... Rowan through the heart. I said to my brother months ago, when she said that, she was about to say mate, and then she stopped herself, and I was right. I thought for a second that Maeve was gonna say that she didn't actually break the blood oath to Rowan, and that Rowan was actually still like enslaved to her, and for a second that thought passed through my head and I started freaking out. To top it all off, Maeve tells us that Aelin is going to settle in 5 years, and that her and Rowan would have lived 1,000 years together. Her and Rowan will live 1,000 years together. They will. The part that really got me was Aelin's messages to everybody. She tells Aedion not to feel guilty, and then she gets to her message for Rowan, and she tells him that he must save Terrasen, that he has to remember the vows that they made. She thanks him for walking the path back to the light with her. The mask, the chains, the box. Oh. The whipping, how Aelin refused to count. Cairn was looking at her scars, and how he snorted, reveling in the thought of destroying all Rowan's beautiful tattoos, Rowan's beautiful words. Grateful she had met them all, that she had seen some small part of the world, had heard such lovely music, had danced and laughed and known true friendship. Grateful that she had found Rowan. She was grateful. So Aelin Galathenius dried her tears, and did not fight when Maeve strapped that beautiful iron mask over her face. They put Aelin on a boat and portal away. Rowan shows up. He just screams, "Where is my wife?" He says his line. He says his fire heart locked in the dark. No! I love that Elide is the one who takes over, and she tells them the whipping, what happened, what Aelin gave up, and that Rowan is her mate. In the midst of all of their grieving, Galen Ashever shows up. I was hoping since Air of Fire that he would show up and help them. I just gotta say that their timing was impeccable, because Ilias and Galen showed up at the exact same moment. I don't know, but that seemed very convenient. So now they have Ansel, they have Rolf, they have Ilias and the Silent Assassins. An army of Silent Assassins is gonna be the coolest thing. Now I'm nervous that Dorian's gonna be the one who has to die. I do not want Dorian to die. I like how Rowan was like, I do not accept this. I do not accept that Aelin and I are gonna be parted this way. I'm gonna go get her, and I do not accept that when I go get her, she will have to die anyways, and I don't even accept that Dorian will have to die. Okay, Lorcan was such disappointment at the end of this book, but Elide walked up to him and was like, I hope you suffer for the rest of your life. I hope you're alone, and I hope you never learn how to deal with the guilt that's gonna stay with you forever. And I was like, oh. When Dorian bows to Rowan like one king to another, that was a really good moment. Rowan's like, no, I'm not a king, and I'm like, Rowan, you will be such a good king. This is why I loved the ending so much, because first of all, I love sad books. I love those books that just rip you to shreds and you cry forever. So this ending I was not mad about at all. Sarah J Maas wrote it so hopefully. We don't finish with the last line being like, and Aelin was locked into the dark, completely powerless and totally gonna die. The last line is Rowan. I'm just gonna read the last line. Unleashing a cry that set the world trembling, Prince Rowan Whitethorn Galathenius, consort to the Queen of Terrasen, began the hunt to find his wife. That is not a last line that's like they're all gonna die and everything's gonna end terribly. That's a last line like, yeah, let's go get Aelin back from Maeve and let's beat Erewhon and let's take over the world together. All right, what do I think is going to happen in the last book? Well, I think so many things are going to happen in the last book. I kind of don't think that Aelin will actually die. I think she set all that up in this book so that she could actually have a happy ending. I'm sure someone's gonna die because nobody has actually died in the past 2 books. But I feel like Sarah J Maas handles deaths really well. She does them for a reason. She doesn't just kill people off. So I feel like I'll be okay with whoever she picks. There was this line during the memories where Gavin has his hand on Damaris, and while Elena was talking to all the gods, he heard the lies or something and unraveled them. I feel like that line was significant. I feel like Gavin, he knows something about this whole Mala's bloodline thing. There's gonna be a loophole, and Dorian and Aelin will not have to die. I want Lysandra and Aedion to make up kind of quick. I don't want that to be a big long drama. I kind of think that they will make up pretty quick. I want Nox to come back. Nox Owen. My brother thinks I'm insane. I've been swearing since the first book that Nox Owen will return. I don't know why. I've just thought this whole time that Nox would come back and, like, I don't know, be something crazy and unexpected. I'm so excited to finally get to see the Bane. I want to see Aedion fighting with his people. I want to see Aedion and the Bane fighting together. I'm super excited for an assassin army and a witch army. I loved almost everything. All of my issues with this book were small issues, like she repeated a lot of lines. Some of her writing was repetitive, especially in Court of Mist and Fury. In this one, I feel like there were a lot of lines that were repeated and it didn't seem like it was intentional. Overall, I liked everything that happened in this book. This one is definitely my favorite in the series. I never thought anything would top Air of Fire, but this one did it. I don't know what I'm gonna do for a year. Thankfully, we get ACOTAR 3 in the spring, because a whole year without a Sarah J Maas book after that ending would just be insane. If you watched all the way to the end of this video, thanks for watching. What do you guys think is going to happen in the last book? Do you have any theories? If you do, comment below, let me know. I'd love to talk about it with you. Those are not all my thoughts on Empire of Storms by Sarah J Maas, but if I talk any longer, this video is never going to end. So, thanks for watching. Bye!